I should have known better than to try going to bed early. Some people slide under the covers and drift off like serene little clouds. Not me. The moment my head hit the pillow, my brain decided it was time to host a memory parade. Every embarrassing moment, every forgotten errand, and even the names of kids from third grade I haven't thought of in 40 years. Meanwhile, Linda was snoozing peacefully beside me, and Daisy the dog was snoring like a lawnmower in the corner. Join me, friend, for the sleepless chaos of one man versus his own memory museum. It started innocently enough. A Tuesday night, nothing special. Dinner had been eaten, dishes washed, Daisy walked, and the house sat quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint sound of the neighbor's TV. "Let's turn in early," Linda said. I froze. Early. Early was not part of my vocabulary. I'm a man who has perfected the art of staying up until midnight watching documentaries about things I don't care about. The Secret Life of Dust comes to mind, just so I can avoid facing the dark abyss of actual sleep. But Linda looked so content, hair tied back, book already in hand, that I thought, sure. Why not? Maybe I can do this. Maybe tonight I'll fall asleep like a normal human being. I was wrong. Oh, so very wrong. We got into bed. Linda propped herself up with 2 pillows and opened a novel the size of a cinder block. Daisy circled her dog bed 3 times, gave a dramatic sigh, and collapsed. I lay down, pulled the blanket to my chin, and closed my eyes. Peaceful, right? Perfect. Except the moment I attempted relaxation, my brain shouted, "Quick, let's revisit every single thing you've ever forgotten in your entire life." First up, my high school locker combination. I hadn't thought about it in decades, but suddenly, at 9:17 p.m., it came rushing back. 36-14-22. Why? I don't know. Did I still have a locker somewhere waiting to be opened? Was a sandwich from 1985 still rotting behind the door? My brain thought this was urgent business. I opened one eye. Linda was already lost in her book. Daisy was snoring softly. Clearly, I was the only one suffering. I shut my eyes again. Big mistake. Now my brain decided to remind me of every embarrassing thing I'd ever done. The time in third grade I called my teacher Mom. The time at my first job interview when I said, "Love you, bye," to the manager as I left. The time I wore my shirt inside out for half a day before Linda told me. I groaned. "Stop." "What?" Linda asked, glancing up from her book. "Not you?" My brain, she chuckled and went back to reading. "Try counting sheep." I tried. Sheep number 1 jumped the fence. Sheep number 2. Sheep number 3 forgot to jump and got stuck halfway. By sheep number 4, I was remembering that I'd forgotten to take the trash bins out, which meant tomorrow the raccoons would host a midnight buffet in our driveway. At 9:43 p.m., I shot up in bed. "Linda!" "Trash," she blinked. "What?" "The bins!" "I forgot to roll them out." She sighed, set down her book, and gave me the look of a woman who had married a man capable of derailing bedtime with garbage logistics. "Henry, go put them out then." So there I was, in pajamas, shuffling down the driveway with Daisy trotting beside me like it was an adventure. The bins rattled across the concrete. A moth smacked me in the forehead. Somewhere in the distance, a neighbor's dog barked in solidarity. When I got back to bed, Linda was already half asleep. Daisy plopped back into her bed with a grunt. I thought, okay, now I can sleep. Except at 10:07, my brain piped up again. Remember that library book you never returned in 1992? No, I whispered furiously into the dark. Why now? Linda stirred. What? Nothing. Library crimes? Go to sleep, she mumbled. I tried, truly I did. But the floodgates were open. My brain became a full-blown memory museum tour guide. Here we have the section of things you promised to fix but never did, like the wobbly porch step in 2004. Over here, a display of every time you forgot someone's birthday and pretended you were just about to call them. And in our special exhibit hall, please enjoy the cringe collection. All the bad jokes you made at parties, preserved in pristine detail. I tossed, I turned, I kicked the blanket off, then dragged it back on again. Daisy huffed. Linda rolled over. By 10:30, I remembered that I hadn't changed the furnace filter since who knows when. By 10:45, I remembered every phone number I'd had since childhood, but not where I'd put the TV remote. At 11 o'clock, I remembered I'd once accidentally said "you too" when the waiter told me to enjoy my meal. Sleep? Forget it. My brain was throwing a one-man circus. At 11:15, I whispered, "Linda, are you awake?" She groaned. "Why?" "Do you remember if we locked the back door?" "Yes, Henry." "Go to sleep." "But could I?" Number. I got up, checked it, found it locked, and then somehow ended up staring into the fridge because my brain said, "You might as well have a slice of cheese while you're up." "Back in bed at 11:27, I whispered again. "Linda?" "Henry." I just realized I never mailed that thank you card to your cousin after the wedding. "Our wedding?" she asked groggily. "Yeah, that was 30 years ago." "I know." Silence. Then she laughed softly, kissed my shoulder, and said, "You're impossible." Finally, sometime around midnight, I drifted into that half-dream state. My last thought before sleep was, did I leave the garden hose running in 2011? And with that, I slipped into uneasy dreams, where sheep and raccoons judged me for eternity. I woke at 2:03 a.m., not to a noise, not to Daisy barking, not even to Linda shaking me. Number. I woke because my brain had decided to shout one thing into the silent dark. You forgot to cancel that free trial in 2014. I bolted upright, eyes wide, heart pounding. The room was still, the moonlight peeking through the blinds. Daisy raised her head, gave me a look that said, "Are you serious?" and flopped back down. Linda was sound asleep, breathing peacefully. But I couldn't let it go. That free trial. Did I ever cancel it? Was I still being charged $4.99 a month for some magazine about exotic lizards? For 11 years? That could be thousands of dollars. I fumbled for my phone, squinting into the glow like a man discovering fire. After 30 seconds of scrolling through my email, I realized two things. One, I had definitely canceled it. Two, my bank account had survived, and yet I couldn't sleep. Because now my brain had latched onto the fact that I once wrote defiantly instead of definitely in a work email back in 2007. "Oh no," I whispered into the darkness. "They think I was angry about the meeting, not confirming it." From Linda's side of the bed came a muffled voice. "Henry, stop." "You don't understand," I hissed. "Defiantly is a whole different vibe." She sighed. "So's being awake at 2 in the morning." I tried to lie back down, but then another memory crashed through the door. The time I brought store-brand cola to a potluck and everyone laughed because the can literally said fizz drink in block letters. The shame still lingered, fizzing in my soul. By 2:30, I was sweating. Not from guilt, but from remembering that I'd left my winter jacket at a movie theater in 1998 and never got it back. Did someone find it? Was someone still wearing it? Did it get donated? My brain demanded answers. At 2:42, I remembered the time I waved at someone who wasn't waving at me. At 2:51, I remembered my gym membership. Not that I'd forgotten to cancel it. No, worse. I remembered that I once went exactly one time, got sore, and then paid for an entire year out of guilt. I groaned and covered my face with the pillow. "Why now?" Daisy trotted over, hopped on the bed, and plopped down on my legs like a sack of potatoes. She sighed loudly, as if to say, "You're embarrassing all of us." Linda, half asleep, mumbled, "Count sheep, Henry." I tried. The sheep unionized. She chuckled softly and drifted back into sleep. Meanwhile, my brain opened another wing of the museum. Here's the time you called your math teacher Grandpa. And here's the exhibit of every time you've forgotten a password. Please enjoy the bonus display, the cupboard full of mismatched Tupperware lids you swore you'd organize in 2010. By 3:15, I was wide awake, staring at the ceiling fan. The sound of its blades became a drumbeat for my guilt. At 3:30, I whispered to myself, "Henry, it's fine. Everyone forgets things. You're not alone." And that's when my brain hit me with the worst memory of all. That one time, years ago, when Linda asked me to pick up milk. Just milk. One item. I came home with chips, salsa, and a folding lawn chair from the clearance aisle. No milk. I sat up in bed again, horrified all over. Linda cracked one eye open. "What now?" "I remembered the milk," I whispered. Her eyes closed again. "Go to sleep, Henry." "I can't. You'll survive." "But what if we needed milk right now?" "We don't," she muttered, "because I bought some yesterday." I collapsed back onto the pillow, defeated by both time and dairy products. By 4 a.m., my thoughts were so scrambled they barely made sense. Did I ever learn long division? Why do hot dog buns come in packs of 8 when hot dogs come in packs of 10? Did I lock the car in 1999? Daisy snored louder, Linda turned over, and I finally whispered into the night, "All right, brain, you win." But then my brain whispered back, "Don't forget you still owe your neighbor a screwdriver from 2012. I pulled the blanket over my head and groaned. By 4:17 a.m., I'd given up on sleeping. The room was quiet. Too quiet. Linda was out cold. Daisy was curled up in a ball at her feet, but me, I was a man possessed, a prisoner of my own brain's filing cabinet. It started small. Remember that time you left the garden hose running overnight? Yes, thank you, brain, I do. Then it escalated. Hey, you never replaced the batteries in the smoke detector in 2009. Oh, fantastic. Let's add house safety violations to the list. Finally, it hit me with the nuclear memory. You once called your boss Mom in a meeting. I sat bolt upright. Not again, Linda stirred. Henry, please. I can't help it, I whispered. My brain is a time machine and it only travels to the most humiliating destinations. She mumbled something about earplugs and rolled over. Daisy opened one eye, groaned, and went back to sleep. So I did what any desperate sleepless man would do. I crept out of bed and headed to the kitchen. The fridge light was blinding, like being interrogated by dairy products. I stood there staring at the shelves. Yogurt, cheese sticks, leftover lasagna, half a jar of pickles. Snack, my brain whispered. Sleep, I whispered back. But in the end, lasagna won. I heated it up, sat at the table in the dark, and ate it like a fugitive. Daisy patted in, sniffed the air, and gave me the look of a dog who knew she wasn't supposed to be fed at 4:30 in the morning, but would accept it anyway. I gave her a noodle. She wagged her tail. Halfway through my lasagna crime, I remembered, "You never returned your neighbor's ladder." I froze mid-bite. The ladder. He lent it to me to clean gutters 6 years ago. Was it still in the garage? Did he secretly resent me? Was the entire neighborhood gossiping about that guy who steals ladders? The guilt was unbearable. At 4:45 a.m., I put the lasagna away, grabbed a flashlight, and crept into the garage. Sure enough, there it was, leaning against the wall, covered in dust, silently accusing me. "I'll return you," I whispered to the ladder. "Just not now." Of course, that's when I dropped the flashlight. It clattered across the floor like a grenade. Daisy barked. A light flicked on next door. And then, as if summoned by my guilt, Mr. Hawthorne, yes, the Hawaiian shirt neighbor, opened his garage door. "Henry, what are you doing out here?" I froze, in pajamas, with a barking dog, standing beside a dusty ladder, at 5 a.m. "Oh, just house maintenance," I croaked. "In your slippers?" "Preventive maintenance," I corrected. He eyed me suspiciously, then said, "You still have my ladder." I nearly fainted. I was just about to return it. 6 years later? "Better late than never," Daisy barked as if to say, "He's lying." Mr. Hawthorne sighed. "Keep it. I don't even need it anymore." Then he closed his garage door, muttering something about lunatics in the neighborhood. I stood there, humiliated, Daisy wagging at my side. When I finally got back into bed, Linda opened one eye and said, "Did you just argue with the neighbor at dawn?" "Yes," I admitted. "Did Daisy back you up?" "No." She betrayed me. Linda chuckled, kissed my cheek, and said, "Go to sleep, Henry." But of course I couldn't, because now I was remembering that time in middle school when I wore mismatched socks on picture day. And let me tell you, nothing keeps a man awake like the haunting image of striped socks immortalized forever in the yearbook. By 5:15 a.m., I was a lost cause. I lay in bed, eyes wide, staring at the ceiling like it held all the answers to life's mysteries. Linda was breathing evenly, deeply asleep. Daisy had sprawled across the foot of the bed, snoring like a chainsaw wrapped in a blanket. The world was peaceful, except for my brain. My brain had decided now was the perfect time to rehearse every possible conversation I'd never actually need. Like, what if I run into my old barber at the grocery store? Should I apologize for cheating on him with supercuts? Or, if aliens land in our backyard, should I offer them lemonade or iced tea? At 5:32, I sat up and whispered, "Linda." No answer. "Linda," I whispered louder. She groaned. "What?" "If an alien lands, what's the polite beverage to offer?" She buried her face in the pillow. "Henry, if aliens land, I will divorce you in my sleep." "Good point," I muttered, lying back down. By 5:45, I was imagining arguments I'd never won. Like the time in 1993 when I should have told my brother-in-law that, no, I did not want his extra snowblower because it broke down twice every winter. I pictured myself finally delivering the perfect comeback 30 years too late. "Take your snowblower," I whispered into the dark, "and shove it where the sun don't plow." Daisy grunted. Linda groaned again. At 6 o'clock, my stomach rumbled. Midnight lasagna was apparently not enough, so of course, I snuck back to the kitchen. I stood there, staring at the shelves like a man reading tea leaves. Bread, peanut butter, pickles, a single leftover cupcake. I should have chosen the cupcake. Instead, I made a peanut butter and pickle sandwich. Don't ask me why. At that hour, reason had left the building. I took one bite. Horrible. Truly horrible. Daisy looked disgusted, and this is a dog who once ate half a crayon. I dumped the sandwich, ate the cupcake, and whispered, "Don't tell Linda." Back in bed, sugar buzzing through my veins, I finally started drifting, until my brain whispered, "Remember that time you waved at a man who was actually waving at the person behind you?" My eyes flew open again. Not now! By 6:30, the sun was peeking through the blinds. Birds began chirping. Somewhere outside, the garbage truck rattled by, smugly collecting the bins I'd put out at 9:43 p.m. The world was waking up. And I hadn't slept a wink. Linda yawned, stretched, and smiled at me. "Good morning," I glared. "Good?" "Good." She blinked at me, confused. "Did you not sleep?" I laughed bitterly. I remembered everything I've ever forgotten. High school locker combos, lost jackets, forgotten thank you cards, conversations with aliens, everything. Linda patted my hand. "At least you're caught up." "Caught up?" I sputtered. "Do you realize I relived 30 years of embarrassment?" She shrugged, slid out of bed, and said, "Coffee's on you." Daisy barked, tail wagging, and so, at 7 a.m., with no sleep, a guilty conscience, and the taste of peanut butter pickles still haunting me, I shuffled to the kitchen and made coffee like a man who had fought a battle with his own brain, and lost. By 7:15 a.m., the coffee was brewed, and I was a shell of a man. Linda sat at the table, chipper as ever, reading the paper and sipping from her mug like a woman who had experienced the miracle of sleep. Daisy dozed in her bed, twitching happily in some dog dream where she probably had my sandwich again. And me, I sat slumped over my cup, staring into the steam like it was a crystal ball. "Rough night?" Linda asked gently. I laughed, though it came out more like a cough. "Rough century. I haven't closed my eyes since Reagan." "You'll nap later," she said, as if that solved everything. But naps are tricky. A nap is never later. I'll try at 2 p.m., close my eyes, and suddenly remember that in 2001 I left a gas station bathroom key hanging on a hook and never returned it. Still, I nodded, because Linda was right in principle. Coffee first, then survival. By 8 o'clock, I stumbled out to get the mail. Bad idea. The sunlight was blinding. The birds were chirping far too cheerfully. And of course, my neighbor Mr. Hawthorne was already out, Hawaiian shirt flapping in the breeze, sipping his coffee like a retired pirate. "Morning, Henry," he called. "Sleep well?" I squinted at him. No, I remembered everything he blinked. Everything. "Yes," I muttered. "Every locker combination, every forgotten errand, every shameful detail of my existence." He nodded sagely. "Middle of the night brain, eh?" "Happens to me too. Just last week I remembered I never returned my friend's weed whacker from 1989. "You still have it?" I asked. "Of course. And it still works." Meanwhile, my neighbor confesses ancient lawn tool theft with pride, while I'm unraveling over thank you cards from 1995. Life is unfair. Back inside, Linda was making toast. "You look terrible," she said kindly. "Thank you," I said, dropping into a chair. "You've got that haunted, wide-eyed look of someone who just binge-watched their own regrets." I groaned. "Linda, I can't function today." "You'll function," she said cheerfully. "You always do." Reader, I did not. By 10 a.m., I'd tried to fold laundry and ended up putting Daisy's squeaky toy in the sock drawer. By 11 a.m., I was supposed to pay bills online, but instead fell down an internet rabbit hole researching whether squirrels ever get hiccups. They do, apparently. At noon, Linda suggested we run errands. I tried to protest, but she gave me the look, the one that says, "You're coming with me whether you're conscious or not." So off we went. Grocery store, hardware store, post office. At the grocery store, I forgot why I was in the bread aisle and stared at a bag of hamburger buns for 5 straight minutes, reliving the memory of buying the wrong kind for a barbecue in 2006. At the hardware store, I blanked out mid-sentence with the clerk and said, "Do you sell memory foam for brains?" At the post office, I stood in line rehearsing what I'd say at the counter, then forgot it all when it was my turn and muttered, "I'd like 1 stamp for my soul, please." Linda pinched the bridge of her nose. Daisy wagged at everyone. I wished for the sweet release of a nap. By the time we got home, I collapsed into the recliner. Linda tucked a blanket around me and whispered, "Try to rest." So I closed my eyes. Peace, quiet, softness. And then my brain whispered, "Remember that one time in elementary school you sneezed so hard your pencil flew across the room and hit the teacher?" My eyes snapped open. Not again. I shuffled into the kitchen and made more coffee. By 2 p.m., I was running on fumes. My eyelids drooped, my head bobbed, and I stumbled through the house like a man possessed by sleep deprivation. I caught myself leaning against the fridge with the door open, staring into the light like it held the secrets of the universe. Linda appeared behind me with her arms folded. "Henry, what are you doing?" "Thinking about ketchup." "You don't even like ketchup." "I know, but I think I once bought a bottle in 2002 and forgot about it. What if it's still in there, haunting the back of the shelf?" She sighed. "Henry, you need to nap." "I can't," I mumbled. "If I close my eyes, my brain will remember the time I asked a mannequin for directions in a department store." Linda raised her eyebrows. "You asked a mannequin?" It had a very confident stance. She pressed her lips together, fighting a smile. "Lie down, Henry." So I did. Recliner. Blanket. Daisy curled up at my feet, warm and loyal, tail thumping once as if to say, "Good luck, old man." I closed my eyes. Finally, sleep. Except number. Instead of resting, my brain decided to mix dreams with memories. One moment I was on a beach eating cotton candy, the next I was back in 5th grade forgetting my lines in a school play. Suddenly, I was salsa dancing again. Oh no, not salsa. And then Daisy appeared in sequins, barking out my social security number for all the world to hear. I jolted awake with a shout. Daisy yawned and looked unimpressed. Linda peeked in from the kitchen. "Nap going well?" "Terribly," I croaked. I was humiliated in 3 decades at once. Linda shook her head. "Henry, you're hallucinating." "Not hallucinating," I corrected. "Time traveling badly." By 3 p.m., I gave up on napping and wandered outside to clear my head. The sunlight slapped me across the face, the neighbor's sprinklers hissed, and Mr. Hawthorne, of course, was out front trimming his bushes in yet another Hawaiian shirt, this one neon green with pink flamingos. "You look rough, Henry," he called. "Didn't sleep," I admitted, dragging myself down the driveway like an extra from a zombie movie. He chuckled. "Me neither. Stayed up remembering every time I've parallel parked badly. I swear the brain is cruel at night. Finally, someone who understood." But then he added, "Of course, I keep a little notebook. Write it down, clear it out. Works like a charm, a notebook? Brilliant." I rushed back inside, grabbed an old spiral-bound pad from the junk drawer, and started scribbling. Didn't return library book 1992. Called boss mom 2007. Shirt inside out 2014. Forgot milk 1995. Peanut butter pickle sandwich today. Within half an hour, I had filled 3 pages. The act of writing it all down was oddly calming, like my brain was outsourcing its nonsense to paper. Until Linda came in, picked up the notebook, and read aloud. Henry once sneezed so hard his pencil hit the teacher. I lunged for it. That's private. She laughed so hard she nearly cried. Henry, this is gold. We should publish it. No, I cried. This is classified material, sensitive information. But of course, Daisy wagged like she agreed with Linda. Traitor. I tucked the notebook under the cushion of the recliner and promised myself I'd burn it someday. By 4 p.m., exhaustion hit me like a freight train. I forgot what I was doing mid-sentence. I poured orange juice into my cereal bowl. I tried to brush Daisy with my toothbrush. I put the TV remote in the freezer. Linda finally snapped, Henry, sit down and stay still. But no buts. I'll make dinner. You stay put, so I sat. Daisy curled beside me. I tried closing my eyes again, determined to find rest this time. Peaceful, calm, drifting. And then my brain whispered, remember that time you walked into the wrong wedding reception and stayed long enough to eat cake? I shot up, wide awake. Not again, Daisy groaned and buried her nose in her paws. To distract myself, I shuffled over to the window and looked outside. The neighborhood was buzzing. A kid was riding his bike in circles, someone was grilling, and the smell of burgers taunted me. Mr. Hawthorne was still trimming those bushes, now humming loudly to himself. I muttered, "That man never naps." Linda called from the kitchen. "Maybe you should take notes from him." "I did," I yelled back. "He keeps a notebook." "What kind of notebook?" "The kind that makes you feel guilty in alphabetical order." Linda poked her head out, spatula in hand. "Henry, get a grip, you're unraveling." She wasn't wrong. At 5:30, I sat back in the recliner, blanket over my legs, Daisy pressed to my side. The house smelled like roasted chicken. My wife hummed softly in the kitchen. The neighborhood outside was calm. Everything was perfect. And still, my brain refused to shut up. Did you ever return that screwdriver to your neighbor in 2012? Did you ever fix the squeaky hinge in the hall closet? Did you ever find the lid that matches that one Tupperware container? I groaned into the blanket. Sleep was never going to happen. By evening, I was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater in a thorn bush. Linda set dinner down in front of me. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. And I just stared at it, fork in hand, eyes glassy. My head bobbed toward the plate as though mashed potatoes might double as a pillow. She raised her eyebrows. "Henry, are you going to eat it or just hypnotize it?" "I'm too tired to chew," I mumbled. "You ate lasagna at 4 a.m., she reminded me. That was different. That was survival food. This is advanced chewing. Daisy sat by my chair, eyes bright, tail thumping, her entire body poised for me to fail. She knew a man on the edge of collapse would eventually drop a drumstick. I picked up my fork and tried to focus. First bite, fine. Second bite, fine. Third bite, suddenly my brain whispered, "Remember that time you wore 2 different shoes to work?" I froze mid-chew. "Henry?" Linda asked. "I wore 1 brown shoe and 1 black shoe," I said gravely, "and no one told me for 6 hours." Linda patted my arm. "Eat your potatoes." I did, sort of. By the end of dinner, Daisy had scored more scraps than usual because my coordination was gone. 1 green bean shot off my fork and landed on the floor. Daisy pounced. By the time I dropped the 3rd piece of chicken, she looked like she'd won the lottery. Afterward, Linda suggested we go for a walk to burn off some energy. I didn't have energy to burn, I had fumes, but she insisted. So out we went, Daisy leading the charge. The neighborhood was lively. Mr. Hawthorne was grilling in his driveway, Hawaiian shirt now orange, with palm trees so large they looked like they might uproot and walk away. The Johnson kids were chalking on the sidewalk, drawing what looked suspiciously like a giant squid attacking City Hall. The mailman, off duty but still wearing his uniform, he must be contractually obligated, was walking his beagle. "Evening, Henry," everyone called cheerfully. "Don't look at me," I muttered, head down. Linda elbowed me. "Smile." So I smiled, though it looked more like a man being audited. Halfway down the block, we ran into Mrs. Delgado, watering her flowers with a hose that seemed more powerful than our municipal water system. She eyed me up and down. "Henry, you look tired." "Tired?" I said. "I'm remembering everything I ever forgot." "Does that sound tired to you?" She tilted her head. "Like what?" "Oh, you know. The time I put the TV remote in the freezer, the library book from '92, every birthday I missed since Clinton. That time I asked a mannequin for directions." She blinked. "A mannequin?" "It was tall and confident." Linda tugged my arm. "All right, Henry, let's keep walking." As we turned the corner, Mr. Hawthorne waved his spatula from his grill. "Hey, Henry!" "You still got my ladder?" I groaned. "It's turning into a neighborhood legend." "You're in the group chat now," he called back. "We call it the ladder that time forgot." The Johnson kids laughed so hard they fell off their chalk drawings. I buried my face in my hands. By the time we made it home, dusk had fallen. The sky glowed pink and gold, the air smelled like charcoal and grass, and I felt like I was walking through a dream. Back inside, I collapsed on the couch. Linda settled beside me with her book. Daisy leapt up and sprawled across my lap like a warm, furry blanket. "You should try sleeping early again," Linda suggested softly, turning a page. "Ha!" I barked. "That's what started this mess." I'm never sleeping early again. From now on, I'll stay awake until my brain is too exhausted to remember anything at all. "That'll be tonight," she said dryly. But she was wrong, because even as I drifted in and out of couch dozing, my brain still had tricks left. At 8:30, it reminded me of the time I said "you too" when the waiter told me to enjoy my meal. At 9 o'clock, it reminded me of the Thanksgiving when I dropped the turkey. At 9:15, it reminded me of the science fair project that exploded in 8th grade and left the gym smelling faintly of vinegar for a month. Linda touched my hand. "Henry, it's okay. Everyone forgets things. Everyone messes up. Not like me," I muttered. "I'm a collector." "Of what?" "Of regrets? My brain is a thrift store of shame." She laughed so hard she nearly spilled her tea. Daisy thumped her tail against my shin, clearly enjoying the show. And then, just to twist the knife, my brain reminded me of something brand new, something I'd actually forgotten today. "Linda," I gasped, sitting upright. She looked up. "What?" "The chicken. We didn't put the leftovers away." She stared at me. "Henry, sit down. We'll get ants or raccoons." "Henry?" "Or a raccoon carrying ants." She marched to the kitchen, checked the counter, and came back holding the Tupperware container neatly filled with chicken. "I put it away while you were telling Mrs. Delgado about mannequins." "Oh," I said sheepishly. Linda shook her head, smiling. "Henry, maybe your brain's not a thrift store of shame. Maybe it's just overstocked. Overstocked? Too much inventory. Needs a clearance sale." I chuckled weakly. "Buy one regret, get 3 free." She giggled. Daisy barked once as if to say, "I'll take the leftovers." And as the night stretched on, I wondered if maybe this was just how it was going to be now. Me, wide awake, haunted by the ghosts of milk I never bought, conversations I never won, and socks I wore mismatched in 1983. The world was calm, Linda was radiant, Daisy was cozy, and I was a man at war with his own filing cabinet of nonsense. By 10 p.m., the house was quiet again. Linda was in bed, book on the nightstand, lamp switched off. Daisy had claimed her usual corner, paws twitching as she dreamed. And me? I was in that weird twilight state, half awake, half asleep, fully ridiculous. It started with a simple thought. Don't think about anything. Of course, my brain immediately thought about everything. First, it replayed every voicemail message I've ever left. You know the ones. Too long, awkward pauses, ending with, "Okay, bye, love you, wait, no." I winced in the dark, reliving each one in crystal clarity. My voice cracked, the silence dragged, the panic rose. I groaned softly. Linda stirred. "Henry?" I just remembered a voicemail I left in 2003. "Henry." It was humiliating. She sighed and pulled the blanket over her head. Then my brain shifted into surreal territory. Suddenly, I was back in middle school, but all the desks were refrigerators, and my teacher was Mr. Hawthorne in his Hawaiian shirt. He tapped the chalkboard with a spatula and barked, "Return the ladder or fail algebra." I jerked awake, heart racing. Daisy lifted her head, blinked at me, then flopped back down with a grunt, as if to say, "Your dreams are getting predictable." At 10:30, I drifted off again and dreamed I was a contestant in a game show called Things Henry Forgot. The host was Raul, the salsa instructor, twirling across the stage with his glittering mustache. "Tonight's category," he announced dramatically, "is embarrassing grocery store incidents." The crowd cheered. A spotlight hit me. "For 100 points!" Raul boomed. "What item did you forget in 1995? "Milk!" I shouted, panicking. The crowd roared. Daisy, yes, Daisy was in the audience, barked, "Correct!" I woke up gasping. Linda stirred. "Henry?" "I was on a game show," I whispered. She groaned. "Go back to sleep." By 11, my brain had reached peak absurdity. I imagined conversations with appliances. The fridge told me I hadn't cleaned behind it since 2008. The washing machine accused me of losing socks on purpose. The ceiling fan sighed, "Round and still you don't sleep." I tried to reason with them. "Listen, socks just disappear. It's not sabotage." Daisy snored louder, which sounded suspiciously like laughter. At 11:15, I tried meditation. Breathe in, breathe out. Calm. But instead of peace, my brain shouted, "Remember the time you waved at someone who wasn't waving at you?" I groaned into the pillow. "Yes, brain, I remember. I've built an entire museum exhibit about it." Linda's sleepy voice drifted over. "You're arguing with yourself again." "I'm losing too," I whispered. At midnight, delirium truly set in. I could swear Daisy was smirking at me. Not wagging, not panting, smirking. "Don't judge me," I whispered. She thumped her tail, smug. I closed my eyes again, hoping for relief. Instead, I dreamed that Daisy was giving a TED Talk titled, "How to Sleep Peacefully While Your Human Loses His Mind." She had a headset mic, slides, and applause from the audience. Slide 1, ignore him. Slide 2, snore loudly. Slide 3, look cute so he shares snacks at 4 a.m. The crowd stood and cheered. Daisy bowed. I bolted upright. "Linda," Daisy gave a lecture. Linda groaned. "Henry, I swear, if you wake me up one more time..." But she had a PowerPoint. Henry. Sleep, I lay back down, staring at the ceiling, muttering, "Maybe I should have taken notes." Of course, that wasn't the end. At 12:20, I dreamed I was at the state fair again. Only this time, it wasn't salsa dancing. It was a spelling bee. The judge was my childhood dentist, glaring at me from behind his mask. Spell regret. Easy, I said confidently. M-I-L-K. The audience booed. Daisy barked, incorrect, and a trap door opened under my chair. I woke with a gasp so loud that Linda sat up, hair wild. Henry! What is happening? Spelling bee, I croaked. Daisy sabotaged me. She flopped back onto the pillow with a groan. Tomorrow I'm hiding your coffee. By 12:45, my brain started blending dreams with memories. I found myself at the DMV, except instead of waiting for a license, I was there to return Mr. Hawthorne's ladder. Line 7 for forgotten items, the clerk barked. Behind me, a row of people stood holding overdue library books, unreturned Tupperware, and, in one case, a bowling shoe. Next! The clerk shouted. I stepped forward. I'm here for absolution. Wrong line, the clerk snapped. I woke again, sweating. Daisy had rolled onto her back, paws twitching, tongue lolling. She looked blissfully happy. I whispered, "You're living your best life while I'm unraveling." At 1 a.m., I gave up and shuffled to the kitchen. The fridge light hit me like divine judgment. I poured myself a glass of water and stared at the magnets holding up old grocery lists and coupons. One list read, eggs, bread, milk. I groaned. Milk again. From the other room, Linda's sleepy voice floated out. Stop talking to dairy. I shuffled back to bed, climbed under the blanket, and whispered to myself, "Okay, Henry. You can do this. You can sleep." But my brain, relentless as ever, whispered back, "Remember when you wore sweatpants to a wedding rehearsal dinner?" I buried my head in the pillow. Daisy wagged her tail in her sleep, probably dreaming of another standing ovation at her TED Talk. And there I lay, a man caught between dreamland and memory lane, losing at both. By 2 a.m., I wasn't just tired. I was entering new dimensions of exhaustion. My brain had stopped separating memory from dream, and now it was all one big soup of nonsense, a stew of shame, a casserole of cringe. I'd close my eyes, and instantly I was in the middle of a memory, only twisted. 1 minute, I was back at my 8th grade dance, but instead of classmates, the gym was filled with all my neighbors in Hawaiian shirts, cha-chaing to La Macarena. The disco ball above was just my high school locker, spinning slowly, mocking me. Mr. Hawthorne pushed through the crowd carrying a clipboard. He slapped it on the table. "Sign here if you still have my ladder." I bolted awake, sweating. Daisy snored, legs twitching as if she were also cha-chaing in her dreams. Linda groaned, "Henry, please, just sleep." I tried, I whispered, but Hawthorne was there. "You dream about him more than me," she muttered, rolling over. I flopped back down, determined to drift off, and I did, but right into another absurdity. Now I was at the grocery store checkout. The cashier scanned my regrets instead of groceries. 1 missed thank you card. Beep. 2 awkward handshakes. Beep. 3 pairs of socks that never matched. Beep. "That'll be $4.99 a month," she said, handing me a receipt. "Is this for that Lizard magazine trial I never canceled?" I asked desperately. "Yes," she said, "and your dog already subscribed for you." I turned, and there was Daisy, standing on her hind legs with a credit card in her mouth. The entire line applauded. The man behind me whispered, "She's smarter than you." I woke up groaning. At 2:45, I drifted off again. This time, the dream was worse. I was at my high school reunion. The banner read, "Welcome, class of 1983, and all your embarrassments." People walked around wearing name tags that said things like, "Forgot milk and called teacher mom." Mine read, "Collector of regrets." I tried to peel it off, but the more I tugged, the tighter it stuck. I panicked. That's when Linda appeared in the dream, smiling, holding Daisy, who was wearing sequins again. "Henry," Dream Linda said, "you can't peel it off. You just have to dance with it." "Dance?" I cried. The music started. Salsa. Of course. Everyone formed a circle. I was shoved to the middle. Mr. Hawthorne clapped in rhythm. Mrs. Delgado shouted, "Mas passion!" And Daisy barked, "Step, step, squeak!" I stumbled awake so violently I knocked the blanket off the bed. Linda sat up, bleary-eyed. "Henry, what is going on? I had to salsa in front of my entire graduating class." She pinched the bridge of her nose. "It's not real." "None of this is real, I know, but the crowd booed me." "They should," she muttered, collapsing back into her pillow. By 3:15, I'd entered the deepest level of delirium. I dreamed I was testifying in court. The judge banged his gavel and said, "Henry, do you swear to tell the truth about every ladder you've ever borrowed and never returned?" "I plead the fifth," I shouted. "Overruled!" The jury gasped. It was made entirely of raccoons. Each one held a tiny flashlight. Daisy was the bailiff, wearing a little vest with "security" written across it. She barked once. The raccoons squeaked in unison. I woke again, heart pounding. Linda was already watching me, sitting up with her arms crossed. "Henry," she said sternly, "if you wake me up one more time..." "Linda, the raccoons were judging me." "They should," she snapped and pulled the blanket over her head. I lay there in the dark, utterly broken, waiting for the next bizarre mashup of dreams and memories. And of course, it came. At 3:30, I was in a parade. Everyone marched holding my forgotten items: library books, ladders, birthday cards, mismatched Tupperware lids. Floats rolled by shaped like giant regrets. A float made of socks without partners, another that looked like a giant sandwich labeled, "The lunch I left in my locker, 1985. The marching band played Pomp and Circumstance, but the trumpets kept honking out the word "forgetful" in rhythm. And who led the parade? Daisy, waving from the front float, wearing a crown. The crowd cheered, "Daisy! Daisy!" Even in my dreams, I was second place to the dog. As the float rolled past, Dream Daisy leaned down and whispered, "It's okay, Henry. I'll take it from here." Then she dropped the crown onto my head. Only it wasn't a crown. It was Mr. Hawthorne's ladder, balanced precariously. The crowd roared with laughter. I woke up with such force, I scared Daisy awake. She growled, then licked my hand as if to say, "Calm down, you lunatic." Linda groaned from her pillow. "Henry, I'm begging you. Either sleep or stay awake, but stop doing both badly." I whispered back, "I'm trying, but my subconscious has a full marching band." "Tell them to march quieter," she mumbled, and drifted back off. But me? I lay there in the dark, wide-eyed, knowing the next dream was lurking just around the corner, waiting for me to blink. By 4 a.m., I'd given up fighting. My body slumped into the mattress like a deflated air mattress after a birthday party. My eyelids drooped, my arms went limp, and for once, my brain ran out of things to shout at me. Almost. Right as I was about to drift off, it whispered one final jab. "You never learned how to whistle properly." "Fine," I hissed into the darkness. "I'll go to my grave whistling badly." "Are you happy now?" From across the bed, Linda groaned, "Henry, your brain is grounded." Daisy huffed loudly and shifted closer, plopping her warm body against my legs. Her weight pressed down like a dog-shaped sandbag, keeping me tethered to the earth. And finally, mercifully, I sank into the first true sleep of the night. When I woke again, sunlight streamed through the blinds. Birds chirped with infuriating cheerfulness. Somewhere outside, a lawnmower buzzed, because of course, Mr. Hawthorne was already awake, probably mowing in another Hawaiian shirt while humming La Macarena. I shuffled into the kitchen, hair wild, eyes half shut, feeling like a man who had just crossed the desert. Linda was already at the table with her coffee, newspaper folded neatly, radiating smugly well-rested energy. Daisy stretched and yawned like she'd just completed 12 hours of uninterrupted bliss. I collapsed into a chair. "Morning." Linda looked up and smiled sweetly. "Well, well, Sleeping Beauty wakes." "I slept," I declared, throwing my arms wide like a man announcing the discovery of electricity. "I think I got 3 hours." "Congratulations," she said dryly. "Would you like a medal or just another cup of coffee?" "Both?" She poured me a mug and I cradled it like it was the Holy Grail. I dreamed of raccoons and parades and salsa with my entire graduating class, I said solemnly, and Daisy was the star. Daisy thumped her tail proudly against the floor, clearly remembering her dream-turned TED Talk career. Linda chuckled. "She's already more famous than you." "Not hard," I muttered. "She doesn't forget to return ladders." Linda reached across the table and took my hand. "Henry, maybe that's your problem. You're so worried about forgetting things, you forget to laugh about them." I frowned. "But they're embarrassing." "Embarrassing is funny," she said gently, "especially when you tell the story later." I thought about it. The shoes that didn't match, the voicemail disasters, the turkey I dropped at Thanksgiving, even the peanut butter pickle sandwich from yesterday. Every memory that had tortured me in the night and made Linda laugh when I confessed them. Maybe that was the trick. Maybe regrets weren't curses. Maybe they were just comedy material waiting for the right audience. I sipped my coffee slowly. "So instead of staying up remembering everything I ever forgot, I should just tell you and let you laugh at me." "Exactly," Linda said, grinning. "You're better than TV." I chuckled. Daisy barked in agreement. We spent the rest of breakfast with me rattling off little confessions, while Linda laughed so hard she nearly spilled her tea. I admitted to the time I once glued 2 puzzle pieces together because I couldn't find the right fit. She howled. I confessed that I once waved at my reflection in a store window. She nearly fell out of her chair. Even Daisy seemed to smirk, though that might have just been gas. By the end of it, I felt lighter. Not fixed, not cured, but lighter. For the first time in 24 hours, I felt at peace. Not because my brain had stopped its nonsense, but because maybe, just maybe, the nonsense had a purpose. That night, I tried going to bed early again. Linda curled beside me with her book. Daisy circled 3 times before settling, and I whispered into the dark, "Okay, brain. Go ahead, remind me of something." And it did. It whispered, "Remember when you tried to eat spaghetti with a spoon?" I laughed. Linda smiled. Daisy sighed happily. And then I slept like a rock. Because sometimes the best way to forget is just to remember. And laugh. Years ago, I worked with a man named Charlie who claimed he had a cure for the late-night memory plague. His trick? Every embarrassing thought that hit him in bed, he'd say out loud, "Put it in the comedy file." One night, I asked him if it worked. "Absolutely," he said. "Every single memory goes in there. And when I can't sleep, I just picture myself on stage telling jokes to a crowd, instead of lying in bed sweating about the time I wore my shirt backwards." I never believed him, until now. Maybe Charlie was right. Maybe all my sleepless misery was just material. Of course, Daisy would still upstage me. And so, dear listener, that was the night I tried to sleep early and remembered everything I ever forgot. A night of lasagna crimes, mannequin directions, raccoon juries, and a dog who managed to steal the spotlight even in my dreams. If you're still here, thank you for staying awake with me through the chaos. May your nights be restful, your brains be kind, and your dog slightly less ambitious than Daisy. And if you enjoyed this little bedtime ramble, don't forget to subscribe, because I've got plenty more memories left in the comedy file. Good night, my friend.